Hello, today I wanted to make a video just talking through some moral conflicts and some realizations I had about sustainable fishing after traveling with my partner Che to Fiji. And yeah, so we both travel as waste-free vegans, and we were very lucky to have done so quite successfully in Fiji. Both of our travelling styles mean that we try and seek out the path least trodden, which generally kind of ends you up in situations where you're living, sleeping and eating like the locals. When you put this in context of a developing country, I've often considered the fact that this may land me in a situation where I may need to compromise on my practices in order to accept the hospitality of those who may not have very much to give. Soon after arriving in Fiji, we found ourselves living in the wonderful home of a family on a fishing village in Waialailai. We were so excited to live off the land and off the grid and experience what could possibly be the last remaining version of sustainable fishing on the planet. These people live the most beautifully simple and sustainable lifestyle in most regards, concerning solar power, very little water usage. They have very little possessions and buy barely anything new. They don't even really have any furniture. Everyone in Fiji just sits on the ground and eats on the ground all together as a family, and it's just the coolest thing. There are no cars, there are no shops, and they grow and fish for everything that they eat. Being visitors and being vegan in the village, it was already kind of a lot for them to process. So we tried to just lessen down our weirdness just a little bit. As soon as we got to Fiji, we were basically diving all the time, and the brother of the guy that we were staying with in Waialailai was actually the dive instructor there. So we were going out every day with him, and the family only had one boat. So often we would have the sun coming out and spearfishing while we were scuba diving. This meant that everything that we saw generally got brought home and eaten by the family. So I was, on arriving to Fiji, I was kind of willing to accept that maybe we might have to accept a bit of their fish, and I was kind of prepared to do so. But after going under the water and seeing these creatures alive and looking at you and interacting with you, there was just no way that I would ever be able to eat one of them. And even though they kept politely insisting all the time, I didn't feel rude at all to just politely abstain. So these guys would just go out for like an hour in the water with a snorkel and some old flippers that are taped to their feet and their spearfishing gun and go and catch the family food. And I thought that this was such an incredibly commendable skill for a human to have, to be able to go out and find and catch and bring home your own food and be completely responsible for the lives that you're taking to eat. As much as spearfishing is an extremely sustainable way of fishing, being able to witness it day in and day out as we went back and forth with either a pile of dead fish in our boat or a line being dragged along behind the boat to catch turtles or fish or whatever, I slowly started to strengthen my views on why I don't eat fish. So this is basically the most sustainable way to obtain fish, yet I could see just by the way that everyone in the village seemed to talk about it and seemed to, well, the amount that they took and consumed, I realized that it's just another way of this element of our human nature to just want to take from something that seems like an infinite resource. The fish that were being taken were generally really big fish, and we had spent hours underneath the water, and I never saw as many big fish under the water than I did in our fishing boat. So what they were taking were kind of the biggest and the ends of the families. We had a few people throughout our travels also mention that they couldn't find big fish anymore, and so all they were taking were kind of fish the size of your hand. which meant they also had to take a lot more of them as well. Each time we would go out scuba diving, there was always someone that would leave a little comment like, oh, make sure you bring some home for dinner, or bring us a turtle for Sunday, or something. And as much as these were done in a joking way, they were often intended to be serious, and normally our dive instructor would be attempting to do so. We would be scuba diving with them, generally while they had a spear gun in their hand, and some of the beautiful things that we saw would then end up getting brought back up with us. Every time we'd come home and be so excited to tell everyone what we saw, we would generally be faced with the comments of, oh, why didn't you bring that back for us, or oh, that tastes like this, or I like eating it this way, and hardly anyone was ever excited about the fact that we just saw it alive and thriving in its natural environment, which then led me to realize that mostly everyone in where we were staying saw these animals as just a food and a sustenance, and even the scuba divers among the Fijians saw them as that as well. So this was pretty full on. The way in which the fish were being speared was not humane, as most of them were generally shot in an area where they wouldn't die an instant death, and were brought up from a very deep location to the surface very quickly, which then causes an animal's eyes to pop out, or their lungs to expand out their mouth while they're still alive. And then these animals kind of sit on your boat and flap around for the whole 20-minute journey of you going home, while maybe people are picking them up and throwing them from one side of the boat to the other to move them around in the last moments of these animals' lives. This was really tough to see after just going down and being with them. One night we went on a night dive, and our friend came behind us with his spear gun and basically collected everything that we saw that was under there, because at night time fish sleep, and so they're a very easy target. So that in itself I found was just a very unfair practice, and the amount that they brought back was far more than their family needed. And as much as they share it around or they sell it to the resort, it just seemed exorbitant. In saying all of this, I can understand how people can desensitize themselves to seeing fish and relating it to the living, breathing, incredible animals that they are. And I used to be one of them. I used to be a pesco-vegetarian for a long time and thought I was doing great, and that fishing was a sustainable practice because they got to swim around in the ocean and have a great life and then just be plucked out at the end. But after researching a lot to try and find the most sustainable forms of fish to eat, I just kept hitting the same answer, which was that there is no way of sustainable fishing. And seeing this in Fiji really just brought that home with me. So fishing, even in its most basic form in Fiji, was still to me something that was so unsustainable and inhumane, and it really reiterated and confirmed to me why I don't eat it. This practice, though, is the tiniest little blimp in the whole scheme of how we in Western societies are able to buy fish. I'm not going to go into any facts and figures and details about the overfishing or bycatch or anything, but I do urge you to educate yourselves, even if you do want to continue eating fish. Seaspiracy is a really great documentary that I watched the other day. It's only 15 minutes long, and it's jam-packed with just a bunch of facts about the fishing industry. So all I can speak is my view and my experience, and mine is that fish should not be eaten. My only advice to you is watch a couple of documentaries on fishing, overfishing, and just know the facts about how your fish gets on your plate. And if you can, get yourself under the water and go and meet some fish and make up your own minds. Thanks for watching.